Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Mm.
Do you want to give it a few minutes for the others to get here?
Yeah, we can give them a little bit.
Okay. Um, yeah, let's just wait a few minutes and see if they come on.
Sounds good.
Um, Maybe we should just get started, and then um, if they come on, we'll just fill them in.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so for this week we're talking about the sexual harassment, the reading, which was the Lone Star case, and then we're kind of talking about the laws and stuff like that. So
Okay.
first, let's first understand the background on sexual harassment laws. So some of the laws, like they distinguish two types of sexual harassment: the quid pro quo, and then the hostile work environment. So, what are some of the laws that go with sexual harassment?
Well, there are many laws and regulation in the workplace that protect both the employer and the employee. So, for instance, there are laws prohibiting more extreme forms of sexual harassment, such as prostitution. Um, Now, in a workplace, when you think about that, a lot of those happen because of ideas for promotion and with supervisors and things. There are laws that prohibit that from happening. And then it goes all the way down to the way that you communicate with others in the workplace. You need to have a professional tone. There are things that you can and cannot discuss, and there are laws that prohibit you from discussing certain things. By degrading any person, male or female, um, by having inappropriate jokes towards others, um, especially inappropriate sexual jokes towards others. There are laws that prohibit that from happening in a workplace.
Yeah. Um, and there's different laws that depend on the organization and how many employees there are. So, for example, Title VII applies only to the organizations that have 15 or more employees. So there's different laws surrounding this subject. So next, let's define what sexual harassment is, because sometimes I feel like people don't understand exactly what it is. So what is sexual harassment? Like, what would be a good definition for it?
Um, Harassment in a sexual reference. Um, Again, there's a ton of different varieties or different types of sexual harassment. But I think it's harassment both physically, verbally, emotionally, and I mean, we're going to be talking about it in a workplace, but there can be sexual harassment in any kind of environment, really. Um, I don't know. What's your definition?
Yeah. Well, from the reading, it says that it's unwelcome sexual advances. And I think one of the main ones here is unwelcome. And so that kind of can be murky on what is welcome and what isn't. but pretty much anything that isn't can't really think of the word, but let me see what it said. I can't find the word. Oh, it says when the victim has done nothing to incite them. So yeah, that's kind of what it said the definition was. Okay, let's move on. Based on Martinez's story, what does her situation constitute a sexual harassment?
Absolutely.
And why do you think that?
What happened to her was definitely unacceptable. I mean, there's no place for that anywhere, especially in a workplace. She should have felt like she was in a situation to be able to report it without any kind of whistleblower. She shouldn't feel like her job is at risk because of sexual harassment. It's unfortunate, but I definitely think it falls under the category of sexual harassment. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Because he wasn't only just making, inappropriate comments or jokes, but he was also, his actions were harassing her as well. So I definitely feel like it constitutes some sexual harassment. Next, what, do you think this is going to be a quid pro quo or a hostile work environment?
Hostile work environment, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough information here to tell us that it is quid pro quo. I mean, she did feel like if she said something about it, that she could be fired, but he never said anything like, you have to do this or I will fire you. So there's never really that mention, but there was just kind of that vibe. So since there wasn't enough information or anything about it, I would say it was a hostile work environment. So yeah, I know it's in the reading, it says, quid pro quo is more like an exchange for a job benefit, such as sleep with me or fired or something like that. That's kind of going to be like the clearest example of it. From reading the note on sexual harassment, do you think DeCoste got accurate advice when he called the counsel's office?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember who the lawyer said he was to report to?
Wasn't it HR?
It was the EEO office, which so there's the federal government EEOC, and then there's the Lone Star has an EEO office, which EEO is like the Equal Employment Office.
This is after he had talked to the employee about it.
No, he hadn't talked to the employee about it. He'd called the lawyers to see what should be done, kind of how he should handle it. And yeah, they recommended that he call the EEO of Lone Star, just the company's EEO. And I feel like because this is such a tricky situation, I don't know what would have been the best way to handle this, just because it was hard, especially where she didn't really want to do anything about it, Julia. But I do think that, yeah, it definitely needed to be reported. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why might a lawyer representing the company insist on instituting a formal investigation process?
Simply because this individual happened to be the boss of that employee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think since it was, like the sexual harassment was happening in the workplace at the company, I feel like you would definitely want a formal investigation. That way you make sure that you're getting both sides of the story, and then you can really find out more of the facts. I feel like that's still hard in this case to figure out the actual facts, but I think an investigation is necessary. How would you evaluate Jack DaCosta's opinion at this point? What do you think he should do?
Sorry. Jack, I mean, he should take the advice of the attorneys first, right? I'm asked, like, yes.
I think there's a couple different options. He could go ahead and report it, or, he could leave it alone, or he could talk to Julia about it. I don't know. What do you think would be the best option for him?
Well, I think he needs to report it by following the direction of the attorneys. But we don't want to surprise her. I mean, obviously she should have been the one that reported it in the first place, so he needs to discuss it with her, but he should probably, I don't know, if it were me, I'd just follow the advice of the attorney.
Yeah. We're supposed to take a vote, but because it's just the two of us, I think it's such a hard situation to be in because Julia hasn't reported it herself, and she is worried about her job and about her husband, and so he doesn't really want to go behind her back. But at this point, I feel like that might be the best thing to do is just report it to the EEO office anonymously, and then let them handle it from there. So if you were in, well, let's see. So if you were, like, let's say you were in Jack's position and you reported it, how would you explain that to Julia Martinez? Because at this point, you have talked to Julia about it. So, I mean, she knows that you already called the lawyers and talked to them about it. So how would you explain to Julia that you decided to report it?
Well, let her know. I'd say, number one, to discuss your worries, your job is not at risk due to strictly the sexual harassment. That's not how an organization would determine if you are or are not an adequate employee if you were sexually harassed. So your job is fine, but the reason that we're reporting this and have reported this is because this is intolerable in a workplace. On the portion of the company, it's important that we report this. To keep ourselves protected, but then at the same time it's also important that we report this for you to keep you protected and make sure that you feel that you have a safe work environment.
Yeah, and I mean, she really was worried about getting fired. So it's such a tricky place to be in. Let's see. So we said that he should report it to the EEO office. What specifically would you report? Like, what would you say in the report?
Everything that I heard. as reported. I would report just the conversation that I overheard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would probably be best. And I think for me, I would just try and want to keep it as anonymous as possible. And let them know, this is not a situation that should be tolerated whatsoever. She is being harassed by her boss, and that it needs to end, obviously. Okay, so for the next part of this, we're gonna talk about sexual harassment policies for companies. So we're each gonna pick a role. So there's the victim, or the potential victim of harassment, the accused harasser, the bystander, and the legal counsel. So are there any of those that you would like to do? We can just each pick two.
Legal.
You want to do the legal counsel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and is there another one you'd like to do?
Nope, you tell me.
Okay. I'll do the victim and the bystander, and you can do the accused harasser and the legal counsel.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's So what we're supposed to do for this is identify the most important things you want to see in a new policy. So we're gonna make up a policy, and then what the policy should be for each role, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you just a couple minutes to think about this real quick, and then we can go ahead and talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go first with the potential victim of harassment. Some of the policies I think that should be in place for this. If you are a victim of harassment, I would say it should be like your legal obligation to report it as soon as possible. At least to the EEO. Because the longer it goes on, the more complicated I think the situation can get. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be handled right away.
Yeah. But I also feel like there needs to be a process in doing that. That way it allows the victim to not be worried about their job. I think this is something that needs to be very confident and only discussed with those who are any lawyers or those in charge of the EEO, just like your top people in this company that need to be aware of the situation, I feel like. So what did you come up with as the accused harasser? What do you think are some policies that should be in place for that?
Well, any individual in a workplace shouldn't be accused. Well, they will be accused. I'm sure there are many false accusations out there, but they should be protected. The same as in a court of law, innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't agree with a supervisor that happens to be of a different sex or the same sex, and I accuse them of sexual harassment, they should not immediately be removed from their position. there has to be adequate evidence in order to make to do that. So I think, in my point of view, if I was the accused harasser, the first thing is that I should be innocent until proven guilty. Now, with that being said, obviously my interaction with the accuser needs to be zero, in the sense that somebody else has got to be over or managing that person. Me and that person should not have any communication until the matter is resolved. And before it is completely resolved, there needs to be a mediator to be there to make sure that everything is very clear on how things will move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great policy. I mean, I really like the idea of making, because in this case, Julia works for her boss is the one that's harassing her, and she works for him, and so they have this situation where she has to be around him on a regular basis, and so it's hard for her to want to report it when this is a situation that's going to affect her immediately. So yeah, I think by having that policy where they're no longer in contact or even around each other, it can help, like with investigation and stuff like that, go a lot smoother. A policy for the bystander, which in this case would be Jack. I think it would also be his legal obligation to immediately report it. Like, the longer he goes without reporting it, the more chances there are for more sexual harassment, which should not be tolerated. So yeah, I think they should immediately report it to the EO and contact the lawyers and let them all figure it out from there. What do you think about the policies for the legal counsel, such as like the lawyers and stuff like that?
Well, there are different ways to go about it. The legal counsel has to have a limited effect on what they can do for the organization. Obviously, the legal counsel is there to advise, not to run. There you are. I think that the policies and procedures for the company need to have very clearly written what the legal counsel will be doing and how their role will play in the whole situation. As well as the legal counsel is usually the ones that are reviewing all of the policies. So they need to make sure that policies are in place to protect the employer, the employee, everyone really.
Yeah. So next, we're supposed to take some time to agree on an actual policy that could be used by a BYUI student group with respect to sexual harassment policies and procedures.
Okay.
So do you have any ideas of like an actual policy that we could come up with? And I'm not sure if this is concerning like students to professors. I'm not exactly sure what it wants us to be concerning. I mean, I would assume as I mean, it said this. I'll read to you what it says exactly, and then you can tell me your thoughts. It says, now take 10 minutes to try to agree on an actual policy that can be used by a BYUI student group, such as yours, with respect to sexual harassment policies and procedures. Would you say, like, pertaining to student and professor harassment policies?
We can do either one or both.
Okay. Let's do student professor. What are some ideas you have for a policy that could be like actually used?
No professor should interact with a student or use any form of communication with students that is not previously approved by the organization. The following are appropriate ways or communication channels. That honestly should just be through iLearn, Canvas, or email.
Mm-hmm.
And say the following are inappropriate and will not be used as forms of communication. And that can be video chat. No, certain types of video chat, because I understand that video is important for instructors to students. But one-on-one video chat, Snapchat, social media should be discouraged. Texting and phone calls should be extremely limited.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some professors who give out their phone number and tell students that if they have any questions, they can call, mainly online professors, but I have heard of that too. Which can be hard to monitor. I don't really know how I feel about that. Yeah, I think it all just needs to be done in a very professional, respectful way. As far as policies go, I would say in the case of sexual harassment between a student and teacher, if the professor is harassing a student, I would say it needs to immediately be reported. I'm not exactly sure who it would be reported to.
There's probably got to be some sort of student advocate organization at the university.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I feel like a lot of these policies and procedures are going to be the same ones that we discussed earlier about, with each role, not being guilty until proven and so reporting this. And I mean, it can go either way. It can be a student harassing a professor harassing a student. So either way, I feel like it needs to be immediately reported and taken care of.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other comments or ideas based on that?
No, I mean the policy has to be very, very clear on sexual harassment for those kind of relationships. Just got to state, your communication with students has to be strictly professional. No sort of personal relationship should form. If you feel that you and a student are starting to have conversations that are inappropriate, it needs to be immediately reported. Here's your reporting channel. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Okay. So next, I'm gonna read the last part of the case that tells what actually happened. And this is a real case, even though the company and individuals have been disguised. So it says, when Jack called corporate counsel, he forgot about caller ID. The lawyer used the information he gave her to figure out the people he was talking about. She contacted the Lone Star EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. Sorry. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez had made up her story to protect herself from pending layoffs. DeCoste was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. Julia Martinez's husband found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit. French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DeCoste for calling corporate counsel. Sorry. There was so much animosity between DeCoste and French that DeCoste left the company after 3 months. So what would you say Lone Star's sexual harassment policy was? The company, what would you say their sexual harassment policy was?
I mean, I guess that their policy was standard in regards to prohibiting sexual harassment, and then
Mhm.
they're going to have a policy in how to handle those situations.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, according to the lawyers at least, it seems that they told him that, he needs to contact EEO and report it for there, and then from there they'll have a formal investigation. Um, sorry. If Lone Star had a policy, do you think Jack knew anything about it?
No.
Yeah, I feel like he didn't. So do you think, like, what type of policies, procedures, or training might have improved the situation that Jack was in?
Well, I think regardless of the policy or procedure, whether it was implemented or not, he probably wouldn't have known about it. So there needs to be some sort of communication from upper level management down to the employees on their policies and procedures.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like training could have definitely helped this situation. And I think that's something that should be implemented regularly. I don't really know how often, but I feel like at least more than a one-time training. I feel like if Jack had been trained what to do, and if Julia had been trained what to do, then I think it could have gone a lot smoother. Do you think the policy that we created as a group could have been helpful to Jack?
Yes.
Do you think clear policies and procedures have helped to avoid any of the final consequences of this case?
No.
Yeah. This is kind of a unique case because, in the end, it didn't really work out. I mean, it was kind of just like this lose-lose situation for everyone. I mean, French still kept his job, but his reputation was, definitely affected. And then, I mean, Julia, her husband found out and beat her up, and then made her quit, and then it cost. I mean, he just felt uncomfortable working there after that, especially with French still working there, so he quit. So it's like nobody really had a positive outcome from this. So I don't really know how it could have avoided the final consequences. I feel like if there were training in the beginning, before any of this happened, it could have avoided a lot of it. Do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay, so this last part is just the feedback. So what do you think is the most important thing that you learned from the case?
It's important not only for employees to be informed about policies and procedures, but also for them to obey them, and if they're not, to have immediate an immediate response from the company.
Yeah. I definitely learned a lot more about the laws, the different types of harassment, quid pro quo, and then just the hostile work environment. I didn't know a whole lot about that before, especially where I haven't really worked in a company or anything like that. So yeah, that was definitely really interesting, and then also just learning about the importance of having those policies and procedures and making sure they're clear and everyone understands them. And then I also learned that training, I feel like that is such a huge thing in companies. I feel like it can avoid a lot of problems, especially with sexual harassment, but with other things as well. So how would you rate the overall quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10?
10. 9. It would have been nice if we had a few more people show up.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we had a really good discussion. I mean, considering that it was just the two of us, it's kind of hard to get different opinions, but I feel like we did a good job talking about the case and anything like that. So what are some things as a discussion leader that I did that you appreciated?
Asking direct questions.
Mm-hmm.
Both. I think it's important to ask both open and closed-ended questions, and you did both, which was very nice.
Yeah, having that variety. Thanks. And what do you think something I could do better next time?
I don't have any suggestions.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we've gone through all the questions and all the parts of this. So I think we're good for this case study.
Okay. Great. So the recording right now has 35 minutes. For the next 15 minutes, do you want to review our doohickeys problem?
Yeah. Also, I think we should do you still just want to do same time next week, Thursday at 9:00?
Yeah, we should do Thursday at 9 o'clock.
I mean, we tried texting the other members, but I know Leslie said that she was sick and had sick kids. So hopefully next week she can come.
Yeah, what's up with the what's his name?
Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard from him in a while. He hasn't responded in the group. We could try getting a hold of him again, seeing if there's a different time that works better for him, or...
Well, I texted him directly just before the meeting and asked where he was at with the paper assignment, as well as if he was going to be attending. And let's see, he didn't respond.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully we hear from him before the next meeting, and we can just ask him if there's a time that's going to work best for him. Because, I mean, I feel like most of us are going to be pretty flexible on time and day. But I think it could just be really helpful if we could get him to attend them as well.
I agree.
Okay. So just from looking at this paper, just quick overview. We're supposed to identify the 3 problems, and then for each problem there's supposed to be 4 possible solutions, so a total of 12 solutions. And it needs to be a detailed description of each solution. And then we're supposed to talk about the solutions and then figure out which of the 3 problems is the most important and crucial to make for the doohickeys to make a priority and focus on solving first. So what, like the critical problem. Then talk about why the issue is the highest, describe pros, cons, obstacles, potential solutions to those. And then how the solution is going to be implemented. So, so Leslie did which one again?
Performance reviews.
The performance appraisals?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm gonna discuss the sexual harassment issues going on in this case. And then was Tyler supposed to do the diversity?
Yeah, so I figured since you were discussing the sexual harassment, we'd talk about that one on the meeting and then write about the other ones.
Okay.
So I did diversity. Leslie did the performance. Tyler's doing. I'll have to find it. I don't remember his topic.
Okay. Well, so because someone's gonna need to choose which of the three that were identified above and expand on that idea, and then we're gonna have to do the introduction and conclusion.
So maybe you. Do you want to do diversity?
Well, I was gonna do this. I was gonna discuss the sexual harassment one. But I mean, I can do whichever.
Are you gonna write the sexual harassment one?
Yeah.
Okay. You can do that. I will do diversity.
Well, if sorry, my phone's getting ready to die. If Tyler wants to discuss the diversity one, and then if you want to put together the introduction, and then pick the critical problem that you feel like is the biggest problem that needs to be identified and focused on first. If you want to do that section of it, and then do the conclusion and wrap it up as well, I think that could be a good even amount.
Tell you what, I'll put the whole paper together, do the cover page, works cited, intro, conclusion, and then let's not write about sexual harassment as we discussed it. If you want to write diversity, and then we'll have Tyler do. I'll find the other topic, but I texted it to him and emailed it to him. Yeah, if you do diversity, she did the performance reviews.
Oh, the equal opportunity laws.
Yeah. Yeah, equal opportunity laws. That's what Tyler's doing.
Oh, okay.
Great.
That sounds good.
How long does the meeting need to be?
I think it's supposed to be 15 minutes.
It would be easy to hit 50 minutes if there were 3 or 4 people.
I know. So yeah, I'll just send out a text earlier next week. Maybe, well, I'll send out a couple. One earlier in the week to let them know the time and everything of the meeting. Time and date, and then I'll send out another one like either the day before the meeting or the day of, so either Wednesday or Thursday, to remind everybody and make sure everyone's still good for that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Alright, well, I think if that's it, we can just wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. I'll wait for the text and then yeah, I'll go ahead and put the whole paper together and I'll send a text out to remind everybody of their assignments. So
Okay, that sounds great.
thank you.
Yep, bye.
Bye.